Hey everyone. Have you ever noticed how every undefeated fighter carries something bigger than a record? They carry a myth. Before they lose, fans imagine the ceiling. They imagine the version of the fighter that can survive every style, every round, every bad moment, and every kind of pressure. Opponents feel it too. They are not just fighting a person, they are fighting the reputation, the highlight reels, the crowd belief, and the uncomfortable thought that maybe this guy really is different. But in MMA, the truth always shows up eventually. The cage does not care about hype, aura, or perfect numbers. It only asks questions. And sometimes the scariest thing about an undefeated fighter is not what they have proven, it is what they have not been forced to prove yet. Now let's get in for the juicy part, the harsh truth about undefeated fighters. In MMA, being undefeated is one of the most powerful things a fighter can have. It creates mystery, it creates fear, it makes every win feel bigger than it actually is. Because fans are not just watching a fighter anymore. They are watching the idea of a fighter who has never been solved. But that is also the problem. An undefeated record can make people confuse unanswered questions with proven greatness. Khamzat Chimaev was the perfect modern example. Before Sean Strickland, Chimaev had one of the strongest undefeated auras in the sport. He was not just winning, he was overwhelming people. The story around him was simple. If he got to his wrestling, the fight changed immediately. If he took you down early, the round would become unwinnable for you. And for years, that image followed him into the cage before the first exchange even happened. Then, against Strickland at UFC 328, Chimaev lost his first professional MMA fight by split decision. The scorecards were close, so this was not some clean humiliation. But in my opinion, that just makes the point stronger. Chimaev did not need to get destroyed for the aura to change. He just needed to look human. He just needed to be forced into a long, ugly, uncomfortable fight where his usual certainty started to fade, his takedowns stopped being effective, and his gas tank started to shrink. The weight cut mattered too. Reports after the fight said Chimaev had a brutal cut to middleweight, with his brother claiming his body shut down when he still had weight left to lose. There were also rumors before the fight that he looked visibly uncomfortable on the scale. That does not erase Strickland's work, and it should not become a lazy excuse, but it does show something important. Undefeated fighters are often treated like machines until the human parts finally show. Strickland broke Chimaev's image, not just the record. Chimaev's undefeated identity was built on pressure, physicality, and inevitability. Strickland's whole style is built around making fights ugly, annoying, and mentally exhausting. He does not give opponents the drama they want. He jabs, defends, talks, pressures, and drags them into frustration. Against a fighter whose aura is built on dominance, that kind of fight can be poison. That is the harsh truth. Undefeated fighters often look unstoppable until someone refuses to cooperate with the story. Once the opponent survives the early danger, once the takedowns become harder, once the pace slows, once the fight becomes normal, the mystery starts disappearing, and when mystery disappears, aura goes with it. Paulo Costa had a different kind of undefeated aura. Before Israel Adesanya, Costa was seen as a physical destroyer, big, aggressive, unbeaten, and built around pressure. The idea was that he would walk Adesanya down, make the fight ugly, and force the champion into a physical battle. But at UFC 253, Adesanya stopped Costa by second round TKO at 3 minutes and 59 seconds. Costa's loss showed another truth about undefeated fighters. Sometimes the record hides how narrow the path is. Costa's best version needed pressure. He needed forward movement. He needed opponents to react to his size, strength, and volume. But against Adesanya, every step forward came with danger. Every entry had traps. Every big movement gave Adesanya something to read. So Costa hesitated. And once a pressure fighter hesitates, the whole style starts breaking. Costa was still strong, still dangerous, still undefeated entering the fight. But the moment he could not impose the one thing that made him terrifying, the aura began working against him. He looked stuck between attacking and protecting himself. That is a terrible place to be against a counter-striker. This is where undefeated hype becomes cruel. It builds the fighter into something simple. The destroyer, the monster, the future champion, the bully, the next big thing. Then when the fight becomes complicated, fans act shocked that the fighter has limits. But every fighter has limits. Undefeated fighters just get to hide them longer. Cody Garbrandt is an interesting case because he became champion while undefeated. When he beat Dominic Cruz at UFC 207, he was 11-0 and the performance was brilliant. He won a 5-round unanimous decision over one of the smartest bantamweights ever. And for one night, he looked like the future of the division. Fast, loose, explosive, confident, and shockingly composed. But Cody's undefeated aura came from a very delicate version of him. His best night depended on speed, reactions, timing, and emotional control all working together. Against Cruz, everything lined up. He moved beautifully, he countered cleanly, he stayed patient when people expected him to be reckless. But that did not mean every part of his game had been proven under every kind of pressure. After the belt, the questions changed. What happens when Cody gets emotional? What happens when someone hits him back clean? What happens when the exchanges get personal? What happens when he cannot stay loose? Against TJ Dillashaw, those questions became harder to ignore. And once Cody's aura cracked, the image shifted fast. He went from undefeated champion to vulnerable fighter almost overnight. Bo Nickal shows the prospect version of undefeated hype. For a while, people talked about him like his wrestling background automatically guaranteed elite MMA success. And to be fair, the wrestling credentials are real. He is not some fake prospect. He is a three-time NCAA Division I champion, and that kind of base matters. But MMA is not wrestling with punches added on. It is a different sport with different dangers. And eventually, Nickal's undefeated record was broken. He lost to Rainier the Ridder by technical knockout in the second round in 2025. That loss did not mean Nickal was never good. It meant the fantasy version had to die. The version where his wrestling solved everything. The version where his development could be rushed because the base was so strong. The version where being undefeated meant he was ready for every layer of MMA. That is one of the ugliest parts of undefeated hype. It often rushes fighters into expectations they have not earned yet. Fans do not want development, they want the finished product. They see 5-0, 7-0, 10-0 and start asking for ranked opponents, main cards, title shots, and future champion labels. But sometimes an undefeated record is not proof of readiness. Sometimes it is just proof the fighter has not been forced to show the missing pieces. The first loss can be healthy. That sounds strange, but it is true. A loss can remove the pressure of perfection. It can force better training. It can show what needs to change. It can turn a prospect into a real fighter. But the problem is that fans often treat the first loss like a complete collapse. Before the loss, the fighter is unstoppable. After the loss, they were exposed. Both reactions are usually too extreme. That is why undefeated records are so misleading. They make people think in absolutes. Either the fighter is the future or they were never that good. Either the aura is real or it was all fake. But the truth is usually in the middle. Ronda was great but limited. Costa was dangerous but matchup dependent. Cody was brilliant but fragile. Chimaev was elite but human. That is why the first loss feels so violent in MMA. It does not just change the record, it changes the story. Opponents stop looking at the fighter like a mystery, coaches start seeing patterns, fans stop giving them the benefit of the doubt. The fighter's own confidence can shift too, because now the worst thing has happened. The perfect record is gone. The image cannot be protected anymore. Because in MMA, everyone looks unbeatable until they are not. And the moment that first loss comes, it does not just reveal that a fighter can lose, it reveals what everyone was too afraid, too excited, or too distracted to see before. If you enjoyed this video, consider liking and subscribing. It will help me out a lot and be highly appreciated. Peace.